Welcome to Coffee and the Bull.
Here we go.
Hey guys, Mike and John with Coffee and the Bull. We just want to say thank y'all for taking a moment out of your day and giving us a listen. I'm hoping that, if at anything it's entertaining.
Yep.
It may be helpful, it may not be. You may agree with us, you may disagree with us, and that's fine. It's all for discussion. That has been the goal of this from the time we started was honestly just normalizing guys talking to each other. And we're gonna be taking a topic from a dad standpoint, a father standpoint, so
one we've kind of tapped into a few times, as far as like our kids looking at us as their hero,
right,
and being present to be the hero,
right, and so we're gonna be approaching it from that standpoint. So if you are not a dad or you're not a father, something like that, you may be standing in the shoes of a father or something like that, and honestly, to get on a little bit of a soapbox, I don't have step kids, but I know a lot of times stepdads kind of take a backseat role to fathers, and there's this idea that hey, they're your step kids, so you obviously don't know what you're talking about,
right?
And that's not the case. You got a lot of guys who they may not be their biological children, but they really step up and they fill them shoes and they care for a kid that they don't have to, and I've got to commend that,
And even if you're a guy and you don't have kids, this may give you some insight light to maybe why your dad or the male role model in your life was the way that he was.
Well, and that's kind of what we're going to get into.
Yeah. Because I know for me, like, I held a little resentment towards my dad for a little while until I realized, like, why he was the way he was and why he treated me the way that he treated me. Because, like, and this is not to jump too far ahead in it, but, like, I remember being a little kid when Daddy was in the Army, and that dad was way different than the dad when we got out of the Army, because the military provides you with financial stability, housing stability, insurance stability. All you got to do is go to work on time. There's really no, I mean, there is, but there really isn't a step out of line and lose your job type situation. And then when we lost that, when he got out of the military, became a civilian, and started working in regular jobs, there was a whole different level of stress, making sure he had money to put food on the table and a house, with a roof and clothes on our back and stuff. So if you guys haven't guessed the premise, we're basically going to be talking about how right now our young kids look at us as this untouchable, invincible hero, and we sometimes take the stressors of life and let them kind of come through us when our child acts up or doesn't understand.
Right.
Because they're young, and you can't say, well, I got to, go to work all these extra hours to pay the mortgage.
Yeah, they don't understand that concept.
Right, because life hasn't, told them that yet. So go ahead. I know you had some good points on this.
And just to start off, it's a story that I've told in a previous episode, but we'll go, kind of go down memory lane for a minute. When I was growing up, when I was a young kid in first, second grade, we lived in a very small house. My dad was a cop. He was working night shifts at the time. And I remember, because one of the things that we would, and it's, I think you can honestly grow up watching nothing but cartoons and kids still have nightmares, and I could not for the life of me tell you a single nightmare that I had as far as what it was. I just remember waking up being terrified, and the way the house was set up is across the hall from my bedroom was a bathroom, and my mom would always leave the light on in the bathroom. Nothing against my mom, but when nightmares happened, I didn't go to mama. I wanted daddy, right?
Right.
But I knew that daddy wasn't in the house. He was working, and so I would run across the hallway into that bathroom, and I would sit on the toilet in my tidy whities for, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 3 hours, who knows, it'd be whenever my dad would get off work, I'd hear him walking through the house, and I didn't say anything because I'm hoping it's him and not a monster or something, something that I was dreaming of, coming out to get me. And so I'm talking about, I'm still terrified, heart's beating out, sleepy because I want to be in my bed, but I'm terrified to go back to my bed. And then he would walk by, and he's in his, back in the, early 90s, he's in his, solid black police uniform, leather belt, shine boots. He's got a vest underneath his shirt and stuff. Not really the military look that you tend to see nowadays, but very professional looking, And I remember he would see me, and hey, what are you doing? Well, I had a nightmare. That's the end of the conversation. There was none of the suck it up, go back to bed, stop. There's nothing there. Stop whining, just go.
Right.
He would immediately take his belt off. His duty belt. He would take his vest off and everything. And that's honestly when I realized my dad didn't need a bulletproof vest to be my hero.
Right.
He didn't need a bulletproof vest to be the thing that conquered the monsters and the nightmares. He didn't need any of that. He was just that guy. In my mind, he was the protector. He was stronger than everybody. My dad could definitely beat up your dad.
Right.
His muscles were bigger than everybody else's muscles. And it also helped that my dad was 6'4", almost 300 pounds. That helped
He's
a little bit.
Big man.
It's easy to. What I love about little kids is, man, every one of them has the argument with their friends that my dad could beat up your dad. That's just Nate. But when your dad's that size, it's you
Right.
feel like you kind of have it in the bag a little bit. But I remember growing up, he was the protector. He was the one that as I got older, if you had a question, you went up to him. He could not know the answer. He didn't say, "Oh, I don't know."
You got an answer.
Most of the time, he bullshitted an answer.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie.
Right. You got an answer. It may not have been the right
And so
one,
what
but
you'd
you
run
got one.
into is he was the answer for everything. Whether
Right.
whether you're scared, whether you're happy, you're sad, whatever. He was the reason for it. Nothing. And I'm not taking anything from my mom. For the moms that's listening, again, this is a guy's podcast. You keep doing this to yourself. But my mom, she fed us, she clothed us, she did
Right. The nurturing.
all the stuff that she was supposed to do. But my dad was the one that I looked to. How I wanted to be as I got older. And one of the things that I found, I had a friend tell me this a couple months ago. It was a very stressful moment in my life. And I'm not going to go get too personal with it, but it was a moment where I don't know that I've ever been that stressed out in my life. My wife was very supportive of me. It was a very tough time. And one of the things that I noticed, or one of my friends told me, he said, I hope that you can look at or not be as critical with yourself. He said, I hope that you can look at yourself and give yourself some patience and
Right.
not be so critical of yourself. And that really struck with me for a long time. And it's kind of changed how I look at some of the things that I got going on. Because we get overly critical, especially, we don't have the playbook as dads.
Right.
Our dads didn't have it. They made mistakes, and we don't mind critiquing them on theirs. Oh, you shouldn't have done this with me, or shouldn't have done that. But we also look at ourselves that same way. Dads tend to look at themselves as being failures. And that may be more of a parent thing. I don't know. I'm not a mom, but I know from a dad standpoint, I look at how I raise my son, and I feel like I do a bang up job with it. But there's still areas where I'm like, man,
Right.
I shouldn't have done that. I should have, should have played with him more. Should have did this or that or whatever. And you're going to make mistakes as parents.
Oh, yeah.
That's just nature of the beast. But we get so critical of ourselves, and I think what we do is we forget that our kids are looking at us the same way that we looked at our parents.
Right.
At that age group. And one of the things that I grew up, my dad was, he was your typical early 90s cop dad, very authoritarian, go do this, go do that. You didn't talk back, didn't care what you had to say, didn't care what you was doing. If he told you to go do something, you went and you stopped what
Right.
you were doing.
Stop what you're doing right
and you
now.
went and did it
Yeah.
right then and there. You didn't say, "Oh man," because then you're going to get popped in the mouth.
Right.
And I'm not throwing any shade towards my dad. If your dad was like that, I'm not throwing any shade towards your parents. But what I'm getting at is, they did things differently because that's was how they were trying to figure it out. In the
Right.
same way, we didn't get given a book, and we're trying to figure it out. My dad was the same way. Well, one of the things that I try to do is I try to have a conversation with my son. Where we didn't when he was born, we didn't baby talk. Ooh, ooh, do
Right.
it in any of the baby voices. We always talked to him like he was a grown man or a young man at least. And so I noticed that now I try to have a conversation with him and let him know what's going on, And so a couple months ago when I was going through, kind of a very stressful point, my emotions were on edge, stressed out, like just, no matter what I was doing, I was not focused on what I was doing. I was focused on what had me stressed out,
Right.
And we even had, at one point, we had some friends and family members offer to get us me and my wife, a hotel room. Hey, y'all get out of town for a couple of days, relax, reset, that type of thing. And we wound up turning it down because it was like, we were so stressed out, or at least I was, that even if I did go somewhere, my brain was going to be back home and what I had going on.
Right, what you had going on, yeah.
And so I remember I was cooking one night because cooking is my stress relieving mechanism.
And I love when you're stressed.
Well, yeah.
Man's a good cook.
So I took and I'm sitting there cooking, and my wife is in the room with her son, and he's supposed to be cleaning up his room like in typical kid fashion. He wasn't cleaning his room, and so he takes and I hear her asking him where one of his toys is. He has an Iron Man mask that somebody gave him that wraps around his face, and she's like, "Hey, where's your Iron Man mask?" And from across the house, I hear him go, "It's behind you. Are you blind?" And I'm talking. Look, listen, Linda. every bit of me channeled through that little wooden spoon I had. I was stirring whatever I was cooking it with, and I'm like across the house. Who the hell are you talking to? And without missing a beat, I go walking down the hallway, and you don't hear a peep coming from that room.
Right.
Because my wife knows how stressed out I am. She has no idea how I'm about to handle this. He has no idea what's going on. He just knows he messed up.
Right.
And now it's time to backpedal. And so I was like, "Did you just ask your mama if she was blind?" And he didn't say yeah. He just shook his head yes. He was not about to
Right.
utter a single word. And I remember I got so mad at him, and I didn't spank him or nothing like that. But one of the things that I realized was I felt I was a little too harsh on him.
Right.
Whether however I dealt with it, I felt that I was too harsh, and so he got his initial punishment. And I had to go back. I went back about 30 minutes later. Once I calmed down, once he kind of calmed down because he was emotional about it, and I had to sit down with him. I'm like, "Look, son, I'm very stressed out." And I didn't tell him why. It was something that's not child appropriate or age appropriate for children. And I didn't tell him what had me stressed out. I didn't tell him what I was going through, but I just let him know, "Hey, look, I've got some stuff going on that it's got me kind of being in a mood, and I need you to be, I don't have a lot of patience for honestly, stupidity is what I called it." And he says he understood. I don't know that he did or not. But one of the things that I realize I want to start incorporating is I want him to see that I don't have everything in place,
Right.
That it's okay as a grown man to be broken and to show him that brokenness. And I don't think, obviously he doesn't fully understand it,
Right.
It's end of the day, he's still a child. He's still trying to wrap his brain around everything, trying to learn his place in the world and his hierarchy in the family, things like that. But like one of the things I noticed is, he's seen me injured before. Like for those of you who don't know, I'm pretty sure I threw my back out. Maybe this is what it feels like. I don't know. I just know
it's like the third time you've hurt your back in 2 months.
It was I was changing a battery in my dump trailer. I got a dump trailer I'm trying to sell, and of course I've had it for a couple years now, no issues at all. Listed on Facebook to sell it, right? And I go outside because I got somebody who says they're interested in it. Well, let me go make sure everything's working on it. So I had some leaves or whatever. I was going to raise it up and dump all the leaves out, right? So go to hit the button to raise it up, and it won't go. So I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I open it up. The battery's shot. Like it's got corrosion everywhere and everything. So I was like, all right, got to get a new battery. Evidently, picking that battery up out of that compartment and setting it in the bed of the truck is what did it, because it took, and I've picked up car batteries,
Right.
dozens of times in my life, never an issue. Evidently, you do it as 37 years old, and that's a nail in the coffin, kids. And so I took and what it makes me laugh because he doesn't care that I'm hurt, that my back hurts or anything like that. He wants to sit there and he wants to wrestle. That's because I keep talking with my hands. But he wants to sit there and he wants to wrestle and all this other stuff. And so
I know that I moved you.
Yeah.
It is fixated on you. So this is what the rest of the room looks like, in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think it fixed it. All right, well, for the guys on live, hey, this is what you're getting. For the guys on Spotify and everything else, is going to get edited out. So there we go. That's good. I quit talking with my hands.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with.
Yeah.
That camera loves you. And I turn that off every single time. Every single time I make sure I go in and I turn it off, and it turns itself back on. That camera's still not right. That's it's going to make me so mad. Keep going, though.
No, it's not the same. We'll edit it in a minute.
There we go. Mucho better.
All right.
All right.
So those are y'all on live. We'll continue going on. So anyway, I'm sitting there and I changed the battery out in the dump trailer, right? And when I go to stand up, it didn't move.
I know, it just made me laugh, but it just randomly is like, when Michael's important.
When I go to stand up, I realize if I stand up straight, like I'm not doing anything. If I just stand up straight, my back is screaming in pain, like it's shooting up my back all the way to the base of my head, and so I do the only thing that I can do to alleviate the pain is I bend over, right?
Right.
And so taking all the innuendo jokes out, and we're going to be grown men about this, right?
Yeah, that's not a great.
So
that's
I bend over and that's how I'm trying to keep my back from hurting. Well, the issue comes in, and this is if you've never experienced this, it's because you're not fat. The issue bending over is my belly blocks my breathing capabilities. And so I've got a decision now, right? I've got to decide either I'm going to breathe or I'm going to be in pain, one or the other. But you can't have you got to have one or the other. You got to have one or the other. And it's one of those, like guys do that. Would you rather? I don't know which one I'd rather right now because it hurt that much.
Right.
And so and of course, Brittany finds out about it. She comes home and she sees me just very visibly in pain, and she shows up. And when I tell you, I'm not saying there was a lack of sympathy,
right?
But there was zero sympathy.
Your wife is either A or B. She's either excruciatingly helpful,
right,
or excruciatingly not helpful.
Well, she's laughing. She's like, "Are you going to keep whining about this and all this other stuff?" And so I got to give it to her. There's nothing she's not a chiropractor. She's not a doctor or anything. So she embraces the fact she can't make it go away. So good luck to you, kid. But. So I'm in the position I'm in, and it's like the moment they sense a little bit of weakness. I think they're like sharks. They smell a little bit of blood in the water. My son, all of a sudden, he wants to wrestle. He wants to fight. He wants to jump on me. He wants to do all this, and I got to sit there and be like, hey, no, I hurt my back. Oh, you're hurt again. And that type of thing. And so, they can see us when. Hey, we have a physical injury that prevents us from doing something. Like I remember when I had shingles, on my arm or whatever. At that time, he was sitting in a recliner with me. Well, because I had the shingles on my arm, I didn't want anything touching my arm. And so, it was he was counting down the days of how much longer it was going to be on my arm and all this other stuff. And so he has seen me in a physical state of being broken, for lack of a better term. But we don't tend to show them the mental side of things. Hey, stressed out. Hey, I don't have the answers. I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. I'm hoping this happens, but if it doesn't, we'll figure it out. We tend to shield our kids from that. And our parents did, for the most part, did the same thing with me. They didn't take in. You kind of had an idea what was going on, but I didn't really know what was kind of under the surface. While I'm being a teenager and being an arrogant little kid and all this.
I remember with my dad knowing when something wasn't right. Not like knowing, but like you could sense something was off.
Right.
And the one thing I always hated was you'd ask, like, Dad, you all right? Dad, what's wrong? You'll find out one day when you're older.
Yeah.
And it's like,
what does that mean?
Right. Like, what advice
can I prepare
is
for it? Can I prevent it?
Right. And so, like, you get to a point where you stop asking, and I feel like that's where we pick up some of that trait from when people are, hey, what's wrong? And you're like, don't worry about it. Or, no, I'm okay. And you try to roll it off your back like it's nothing, and it could be something, crazy.
Right.
And talking about, like, experiences as a child and stuff like that, like, I remember, again, this is a story I'm pretty sure we told around Christmas time. I remember when, like, my dad would come in the room, like, right before Christmas, and my little sister and I were called Irish twins. We were 11 months apart. So for the longest time, we shared a bedroom because the military, we weren't old enough to have our own rooms or qualify for our own rooms. So we're in a shared bedroom. We're like 4 at the time, 3 or 4. And I remember my dad coming in, and he was a lot younger, and he had these bulldozer trucks. Now, my dad is, to this day, a massive fan of, see, now I talk with my hands, and it's on me.
Just keep going.
So he comes in with this Caterpillar, Tonka trucks and stuff like that, and my parents are having a Christmas party. You may actually have to move the whole top piece. No, not that one. That one, yeah. Those of you on live, we're having these technical difficulties again.
Somebody keeps talking with his hands.